It's okay. No, not right now. Are you taking Teddy?
Nobody told me to. If they would gladly tell me, I would gladly do it. Next week I'm going to start. They can't be doing this all the time.
Vote getter among fans for induction into the Hall this year. Duran Duran is next, followed by Dolly Parton and Pat Benatar. There are 17 names on the list. Fan votes can be influential, but an international voting body of 1,000 members of the music industry make the final call. I'm Dave James on the Ohio News Network.
Live and local conversation for the Ohio Valley continues shortly, here on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Babies come with lots of decisions.
Cloth or disposable? Crib or bassinet?
So when it comes to protection, go with the safest, most effective choice, vaccination. Get all the recommended vaccines for your baby by age 2 to protect your child against 14 serious childhood diseases. For more reasons to vaccinate, talk to your child's doctor. Go to cdc.gov/vaccines or call 800-CDC-INFO. A message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Sometimes the best time to prune trees is when they're dormant or with no leaves on them. For ISA certified arborists, it helps them see what branches may need to be pruned or removed. Dormant season pruning can also help lessen problems associated with insects and diseases and help create structurally stronger trees that can better handle heavy wet snows or ice buildup. Contact an ISA certified arborist to get the best professional advice on keeping your trees healthy and safe. Go to treesforohio.org. That's trees, the number 4, ohio.org.
February is Children's Dental Health Month, so make sure you make an appointment for your child to visit an Ohio Dental Association member dentist. ODA member dentists are located throughout the state and are dedicated to providing the highest quality dental care, are bound by the highest ethical standards, and have access to superior ongoing education and training. On your next visit, ask if your child's dentist is a member of the Ohio Dental Association and American Dental Association, so you know you're being treated by the best. To find an ODA dentist in your area, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 want to thank the owners and contractors of the Ohio Valley for using their locally trained workers to help build for the future. Local 83 helps design, fabricate, and build the gas infrastructure for the oil and gas industry here in the Ohio Valley. Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 is 300 members strong and growing. They also do residential, commercial, and industrial work on both sides of the river. For more information, call Plumbers and Steam Fitters Local 83 at 304-233-4445.
Now is the time to explore Toyota's wide range of all-wheel and four-wheel drive vehicles. Like the brand new Corolla Cross with available all-wheel drive and more cargo room than ever. Or go off-road in a rugged new 4Runner. Visit your Toyota dealer today. Or go online to buyatoyota.com, the official website for deals. Hurry, offers end February 28th. Toyota, let's go places.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
The best in live and local talk returns momentarily on The Watchdog.
Hello, everyone, from the Watchdog. I am the Storm Tracker, Darnell Foster, with a look at your local weather forecast for your Wednesday. Look for partly to mostly sunny skies, a milder afternoon with a high near 46 degrees, your overnight low of 33 degrees under partly cloudy conditions, then clouds holding strong for your Thursday, maybe even a snow shower or two before it's all said and done, with temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. Have yourself a great day, everyone. From the Watchdog, I'm Darnell Foster.
The views and opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of this station or its sponsors.
Do you like pizza? Sausage and extra cheese.
Large pepperoni, extra cheese.
I'll take that as a yes.
Never needed an excuse to eat pizza, but if you do, here is a good one.
It's National Pizza Day, like pizza pie.
Celebrating National Pizza Day. Today is National Pizza Day.
I love pizza.
You do like pizza.
Yes, I love pizza.
It's pizza time.
Let's go.
On FM, on AM, online, on demand, and on video. We are where you are. The Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe is here now.
Warmer day is in store, although precipitation is back in the forecast. Now, don't panic. Some light sprinkles later on today, maybe some light flurries tomorrow. A little more intense flurries or rain later in the week, but nothing big to worry about. Currently 38 degrees, Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, 33 at the home studios here in the Elm Grove section of Wheeling, and 35 at the Robinson Auto Group studios downtown Wheeling in the heart of the Ohio Valley. Coming up in this hour, that controversial anti-stereotype bill, the transparency bill, in Charleston gets a public hearing today. Ogden State House reporter Stephen Adams in with us to preview that just ahead of the public hearing and to look at the debate going on over this, what I call a stealth critical race theory bill. We'll talk to Stephen about that in just a bit. As Wheeling Council and the City Planning Commission consider changes to the zoning ordinance, we'll get a perspective on that from Councilman Jerry Slavanakis in just a handful of minutes. If we have a chance, we'll talk about Super Bowl betting and big game snacks. And the West Virginia Senate advancing a bill that guts the unemployment safety net. As I see it, that whole concept created because some of the senators believe that, well, you're lazy, that West Virginians are just lazy, and therefore we'll just take any safety net away from them. We'll talk about all of that coming up this morning. In fact, we'll talk about what's happening in Charleston right now as we check in with our Capitol report.
This is the Metro News Capitol Report, brought to you by AARP West Virginia. AARP is your ally for real possibilities in the Mountain State.
West Virginia as you get older. With 250,000 members and communities in all 55 counties, AARP is working every day for you. We have financial tools and health guides to help make sure the good things in your life live as long as you do. We're working to protect your hard-earned tips and tools to help you spot frauds and scams. At the same time, AARP is advocating on behalf of West Virginians 50 plus and their families at the state capitol. Every day we're supporting family caregivers, fighting for things like better high-speed internet access across the state. And we're sharing the latest coronavirus information to help keep you and your family safe. Everyone in the Mountain State needs someone in their corner. That someone is AARP. For more information, connect with us on social media at AARP West Virginia or find us online at aarp.org/WV.
Two bills that have gotten a lot of attention this legislative session will be in the spotlight today at the State House, both in the House of Delegates. The anti-stereotyping bill will be up for public hearing at 9 this morning in the House chamber. A lot of speakers expected on both sides of the issue. The bill raised eyebrows when it moved through the House Education Committee last week. The pro-life supported bill that would make abortions illegal after 15 weeks will be before the House Judiciary Committee for discussion beginning at 3 this afternoon. A bill that would make more changes to the state's foster care system is next headed to the House Finance Committee following approval in the House Health Committee on Tuesday. A portion of the bill would raise salaries for child protective services and adult protective services by 15%. The DHHR's Jeff Pack went over some of the current pay levels yesterday with House Majority Leader Amy Summers.
CPS seniors start at $34,688. CPS supervisors, who I think is who you and I met with in Taylor County, they start at $36,779, and they're supervisors. I have other folks that work for me, but relative to CPS, that's kind of...
I can't imagine why we have a shortage.
I'm Jeff Jenkins on Metro News, the voice of West Virginia.
It's 8:15 here on the Watchdog Morning Show. Straight ahead, we'll bring it back to the local area. Going to be talking with Wheeling Councilman Jerry Sklavonakis. Wheeling Council and the Planning Commission had a joint gathering this week to talk about some proposed changes to the zoning code. And I'm just trying to get a sense of how some different members of council feel about it, and we'll eventually get your take on it too. So Councilman Sklavonakis is coming up next on the Watchdog Morning Show.
On the West Talk Line on Metro News.
Okay, Doug, thank you.
Opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
When I started at Mountain View Solar, I was placed on the installation crew, and I was very green to anything construction related.
Henry Gill Newton from Berkeley Springs.
Within about a year, I was able to run a crew and go out to jobs. I think it's time that we start working towards creating new infrastructure that can renew itself within seconds and maintain itself through years and years to come.
Paid for by Environmental Defense Fund.
For all of your IT needs, visit OmniPerforms.com. Omni Strategic Technologies, the only IT company that the Watchdog trusts.
Hey man, what can I get you?
Yeah, can I have 2 Coors Lights?
You got it. Hey Mike! I need 2 Coors Lights!
Sure thing. With a taste as cold as the Rockies, only Coors Light gives you refreshment every time.
Here you go.
Thanks, Mike. Doing a great job. All right, 2 ice-cold Coors Lights.
That's the coldest beer I've ever had.
Hey, they don't call it the world's most refreshing beer for nothing.
Okay, be honest with me. Do you really have the Rocky Mountains in your beer cooler?
You don't believe it? Check it out.
Man, that's pretty amazing.
I know, right? I can't believe it myself sometimes. I mean, this cooler is only 3 feet wide.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. With great beer comes great responsibility.
We don't run down at sundown. For sports talk all night, listen to WKKX. For political conversation, tune to WVLY. And it's all online at watchdognetwork.com and on your phone with TuneIn Radio.
Great conversation continues now on the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
Wheeling's mayor and vice mayor have proposed several changes to the city's zoning ordinances having to do with parking, having to do with these accessory dwelling units, little granny flats they call them, or garage apartments or what have you. And council has tasked the Planning Commission, on which I sit, to do a little research into this and come back with some recommendations. And so the first of that process began this week when the council and the Planning Commission met together to just sort of kick this stuff around. I'm probably giving more attention to this than most people in the media, simply because as a member of the Planning Commission, I feel that zoning is a critical part of any city. And I think that it's important that we understand and that we make clear what we're doing with our zoning. And I'm not sure these proposals are doing that. But I'm approaching with an open mind. I've been trying to talk to each of the members of council, just get a little upfront feel about what they're thinking as this process begins. And So today I invited Councilman Jerry Sklavonakis to join us to talk about things. Jerry, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Howard. I appreciate the invitation to be part of the radio show. Thanks.
You had a lot of questions at the meeting on Monday night. It seemed like you were sort of trying to get a handle on what the intent of the ordinances, the proposals were, and maybe why the zoning is the way it is right now. Is that a fair assessment of maybe where you are at this moment?
I think that's very fair. I think during any process, you need to analyze it by asking who, what, where, when, and how. And I think where we are right now is at that point. And the reason why is, well, as you said, there's 3 major changes that's being requested, and it's been sent to the Planning Commission, which you're a member of, to sort of vet it and see exactly what can and can't be done. And that's where we are right now. And these 3 different changes to our zoning ordinance isn't something that I came up with. So I'm sort of like you in the sense that I want to know, well, what is the ask? Okay? And then the next step is, well, why? And I think that's all part of any analysis you do, especially when you're trying to, legislate a local community. And these zoning ordinances is, I think, sort of important. They're not, every city has zoning laws, and it's up to your elected officials to figure out what's the best fit for your community. And that's sort of where we are right now. And that's where we are. And I think Monday was a really good first step in trying to piece through what is being asked. And I'll tell you why. I think one of the reasons why that was very, very important is because, and you'll know this because you're on the Planning Commission, you got it. But when this first came up, there was some modifications that were written, okay? Because you understand, you and I talking, me and other members of City Council talking about stuff is one thing. But when you actually see it written down, and you actually see the words written, it could be a little different. And what happened was we got a modification of an ordinance, well, all the ordinances, really. And when you look at it, written down, it is full red. And that gave me a lot of pause and concern because it was such a significant modification. And it's not just one part of the zoning ordinance that's being affected, but really it's 3 different parts. So I really, when you saw it written down, it gave me some concern, and the red lines, I think, sort of showed a red flag in the sense that, wow, this is a little much. This isn't just adding a sentence here or changing some criteria. It's sort of a full-scale modification of our zoning ordinances. And that's a serious matter, and I think it's being taken serious, and that's what we're doing right now is our due diligence to see if the modifications that are being requested are appropriate.
In order to accomplish some of the goals that the mayor and vice mayor have suggested we need to do with the parking and the accessory dwelling units and so on, in order to accomplish that, the code has to be rewritten to essentially eliminate the concept of single-family residential districts. Now,
right. And
I want to speak from history on this because I was involved in writing this ordinance to begin with way back in 2002, and it goes back to the 1997 comprehensive plan, which I also was involved in helping put together. And I can tell you, historically, one of the mandates from council at that time was create and then protect single-family residential neighborhoods. We didn't have anything called a single-family residential neighborhood prior to that. So as a planning commissioner, and this is why I have an open mind, but I begin with concern. As a planning commissioner, I have said for 30 years, the number one responsibility we have is to protect the integrity of residential neighborhoods, to protect the places where we live. And what concerns me is in order to accomplish the mayor and vice mayor's goal, we have to redline out the whole concept of single-family neighborhoods. That has me concerned.
Well, and that's true. I mean, that's literal. I mean, when you look at the code section, there's like a very beginning of it that says purpose. Our purpose is to do A, B, and C. And in this case, it's to protect the neighborhoods. Well, under the code, under the modifications that are being proposed, you get rid of the whole purpose. And I think that's too much. I just don't think that's appropriate at this point. But I'm listening. I'm trying to figure out where they're coming from. But when you get rid of the purpose, I think that it's more than just a little zone modification going on here. It's changing the zoning code in the point that the purpose is completely gone. So so I think it's a big deal, and I appreciate at least some people are paying attention to it because it will modify our zoning ordinance in a very significant and real way. And I appreciate the fact that you were involved before, and I did a little bit of research to sort of figure out how did our zoning code get to this point? And one of the things I want to point out, and I think you probably know this, is that prior to the zoning ordinances that we have right now, there was different criteria to determine whether or not you could have tiny homes or sheds or accessory buildings in your backyard. And that was based upon your lot size. And it was based upon whether or not you had 2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots. So there were zoning in place previously, but it was just different criteria was used to determine whether or not you could have another residential building in your backyard. So, it was changed for a reason, and they want to change, and now it's being requested to be changed. And I'm still not really sure what the reason for that request is. And that's what we're here to do, is to work through this. And I look forward to hearing more from my fellow members of council as to why they believe this is in the best interest of our neighborhoods. Because at first blush, I don't think it is in the best interest of our neighborhood. But, I'm here to listen, and I have no problem trying to figure out. But, this isn't something I'm pushing, so I can't come here and tell you or the listeners why they think this is in the best interest of the neighborhoods. I mean, that's just, I don't know how. I can't articulate it. So
one of the things that I always ask in anything, and certainly in a situation like this, is what's the problem we're trying to fix? In other words, is there something wrong that we are trying to correct? And I thought it was interesting. We learned some things. One of the issues being talked about is expanding the lessening of requirements for parking for businesses. Currently in the downtown zone, there is no real requirement there. Expand that to other commercial districts. And I see some value in that. I think it's worth talking about. But one of the things that I thought was interesting was there is a process right now. If someone comes before the Planning Commission with a proposal and they do not meet the requirements for the X number of cars they have to park, and the concept behind that, of course, is if you can take up all the on-street parking, well, then you're going to intrude on your neighbors. So you have to have a certain amount of off-street parking available. Right now, if you don't meet those numbers, you, the business, can go to the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a variance from the parking. What I found interesting, our planning administrator did some research over the last 10 years. About 4 or 5 parking variances have been requested per year, and 100% of them have been approved. So what's the problem here?
Howard, I think that's a wonderful point. I think everyone was shocked when they told us that. Because all 3, let's be clear, all 3 requests have a process to deal with them, okay? So if you want to open a business and you don't have enough parking, there is a process to go through. If you want to rebuild a non-conforming structure, there's a process to go through. If you want to have a tiny home in your backyard, there's a process to go through. So there's a process to address all 3 zone changes. And what you just brought up is, I think, I was shocked, because what that means is every single person who's tried to open up a business in Wheeling for the past 10 years who've had issues with parking have gone before the Board of Zoning Appeals, and every single one of them, the city has worked with them, or the Board of Zoning Appeals have worked with them, and they've been able to figure it out, and every single request has been granted. So it's not like someone has come to the city and said, hey, I want to open up a business in this neighborhood or this area, but I don't have any parking. And the city said no, and it didn't come through. So, it blew my mind. So every single time someone has come to open up a business in the city and there was parking minimum issues, they've been able to resolve that. The business has been able to open. So I don't see what the problem is. And I agree with you. I was shocked by that. And I think everyone else was shocked as well. I got to say, one of the things that, and one of the reasons why we have these rules is I think for the benefit of the community in the sense that this gives people an opportunity and an avenue to be heard. And that's what I think residents deserve. I don't think we should take away the voice of the people. So that's my concern with at least removing parking minimums. Because, well,
the argument made by some of the folks supporting the changes in this particular context, the fact that they have the ability to go to the BZA and they always are approved, the argument was, well, if they're always going to approve it, then let's not even make them go to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I think your point, Jerry, is a pretty important one. The BZA variance process still allows citizens to come and express their concerns and their worries about the neighborhood. And I think even if the citizens even if their opinion ends up not swaying the decision, they should have the ability to express themselves on an issue that impacts their neighborhood. And that's why I think the process makes sense.
I agree. I mean, the process is there for a reason, and part of it is to allow residents to have a voice in that process. I don't think we should take it away from them. I mean, if there's a bunch of people saying, look, we were going to have this huge business in this area, but we couldn't open it up because we couldn't get a variance for parking minimums, well, then that's a different story. But that's not the fact pattern we have here. And so I don't, that's one of the, out of all the three, I guess 2 out of the 3, I'm not, I guess, so horribly opposed to. But that fact, that it's always been approved, is something I don't think we should ignore. So at least as it relates to the parking minimums.
Jerry, I promised you I'd get you out of here because I think you've got court date or something to get to, so I don't want to keep you too long. So you feel the process is at least off to a good start after the meeting on Monday?
I do, because when you look at what was written down, it's shocking. But when you talk to them, they acknowledge it. Listen, that's not exact. I mean, we can work on that. So I think it's a good process of trying to figure out what do they want. And when it came to the parking minimums, it's not parking minimums. The discussion was, well, let's just do it in the commercial districts. Well, what does that mean? Words are important, right? So commercial districts are what? Words matter. I mean, and that's something. I mean, maybe because I'm a lawyer, I get a little more hung up on that than most people. But words matter, and what you write down matters, okay? And the commercial districts are what? C1, C2, and industry. Well, C1 and C2 are right next to neighborhoods. So what you're going to do, and it happens all the time, is that the parking bleeds into the neighborhoods. Well, that's something we need to take into consideration. And that's something that I think residents should be allowed to speak to the governing body about. I don't know why we would just get rid of that.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of territory to cover here. I came into this when the proposals were first made pretty much adamantly opposed to everything, simply because I helped put the original code together, and I think there's reasons for it. But I'm seeing possibilities of some compromise, if that's the right word, some ways we maybe can achieve some of what the mayor and the vice mayor are wanting to achieve. But I think we've got to be extremely careful. There's always the unintended consequences. It sounds like a great idea.
Unintended consequences are something that we really need to take into consideration. Now, one of the things I'll say to you that I said at the meeting was that these 3 different zone changes really affect different areas of our zoning ordinance. And I don't know if we can modify the zoning in a piecemeal fashion. I mean, this is an overall change of our zoning ordinance that I think we should take very seriously. And if we're going to do it, maybe we should, just do the whole thing. I mean, if our zoning codes and ordinance is so bad, then maybe we should sit down and take the time to modify the whole thing. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I would rather be deliberate and in this analysis than just say, all right, well, let's just compromise and get on with it. Because these 3 different changes are in 3 different parts of the zoning code. I mean, this isn't just one adding a comma here, taking a shall out and put in a should, take out a recommendation, and it's more than that. I mean, you're redlining whole purposes of the Wheeling zoning code, and that's significant. And I don't know if we should just jump into it and without looking at it in a broad, comprehensive way.
Jerry, I'll let you go, but again, my bottom line, the touchstone I look at as we discuss all of this is how does it affect the people who live in our community? Am I all in favor of encouraging and supporting businesses? I am. But I want to try to protect the people who live here. I think that, the quality
Well, that's
of life.
consistent. Howard, that's consistent with the comprehensive plan. I mean, the comprehensive plan is the document that we're supposed to govern by. And it clearly says, as it relates to the neighborhoods, that they should stay as is. They should stay as single-family residential neighborhoods. And I agree with that.
Well, we'll have a lot more time to talk about this privately and in public, it's going to take some time to go through this process, but I've been trying to just kind of get everybody's initial feeling on it, and I appreciate yours this morning, Jerry. Thanks very much.
All right, Howard, thanks for having me on. You have a nice day.
You too. Jerry Skladonakis, councilman from the city of Wheeling, joining us this morning here, sharing his thoughts on these zoning changes. The mayor and vice mayor essentially are the ones behind it. Ty Thorngate, very much a supporter of these changes. I have had personal meetings with Ty and with the vice mayor to talk about it. A lot of discussion this week. There will be a lot more coming down the pike as well. We've had Ben Seidler and Dave Palmer and Jerry on the show. The vice mayor was on the show expressing his concern. I'll get Ty on here in the near future. And I'm paying more attention to this than most of the media are, simply because I'm on the planning commission. I feel like I have a commitment to protecting the integrity of the places our people live. And that I take that as a very strong commitment. So that's why I'm spending more time on it. We're going to spend time on this spin-off of critical race theory, the anti-stereotype bill. Stephen Adams is with us coming up next here on the Watchdog Morning Show.
Now it's time for your local news headlines from 7 News at WTRF, My Ohio Valley, and ABC Ohio Valley. Only on AM 1600 WKKX. The Watchdog.
Good Wednesday morning, Ohio Valley. I'm Stephanie Grinley with your 7 News headlines for February 9th. Wheeling Park High School's principal staunchly defends the teacher whose work was used as an example by one West Virginia legislator wanting to control what students are being taught. Republican lawmaker Chris Pritt is the author of an anti-stereotyping act. Park principal Meredith Daylor told 7 News, quote, "We are not teaching critical race theory here at Wheeling Park High School. We are not teaching and pushing kids towards communist or Marxist thinking," end quote. Daylor wants to say if kids want to talk about the value of equality, she will not stifle conversation. House Bill 4011 is currently in the West Virginia House Judiciary Committee. In another school and story we're following in Ohio, a Buckeye local high school substitute teacher accused of sexual conduct with a student has been placed on leave. Haley Hoover was charged on 9 counts of sexual battery. Buckeye local schools now provided the following statement to 7 News, saying, quote, "The district received notice the morning of February 2nd that a substitute teacher allegedly had an inappropriate relationship with a student. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office and the Jefferson County Children's Services were immediately notified. A hearing for Hoover is set for today." And speaking of courtrooms, a jury is deliberating the fate of a Wheeling man accused of attempted murder and sexual assault in Marshall County. Mitchell Arbogast took the stand in Marshall County. The prosecution claims his ex-girlfriend suffered a fractured skull, broken wrist, and was strangled during the alleged incident in July. The 60-year-old denied he did any of the crimes he's being accused of. We're continuing to follow this case and will bring you updates as a verdict is returned. That was a look at your headlines. Have a great Wednesday, everyone.
The Mountaineers snapped their streak with a win. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Caridi. That story coming up on today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger.
At Kroger, fresh groceries are our thing. So we do freshness checks on the items in your delivery order at every step of their journey from our farms to our stores. And pick and pack every blue, razz, and strawberry in your free pickup order with the utmost care. Because we believe in treating your food the same way we'd want ours to be treated. It's the golden rule, only for like fresh fruit and stuff. Order now using the mobile app. We're fresh every day, so shop anyway. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Free pickup on orders of $35 or more. Restrictions may apply.
42 million Americans struggle with hunger, yet 35% of the food in this country is wasted. Those aren't just numbers, they're our neighbors. Your daughter's friend from school, the family of 4 next door. The Kroger Company Zero Hunger, Zero Waste Foundation is committed to making fresh food accessible to all by ensuring it never goes to waste. Together, we can help end hunger. Learn more
over at zerohunger.zerowastefoundation.org.
It had been 4 weeks to the day, and it's finally over. West Virginia's losing streak, which had swelled to 7 games, snapped last night inside the WVU Coliseum as the Mountaineers knocked off the Cyclones of Iowa State, winning it by a score of 79-63. West Virginia controlled the game from the opening tip. The Mountaineers, with a barrage of three-point shots in the first half, led by 11 points at halftime. Their lead grew to as many as 19 points in the second half. Iowa State was able to cut that down into single digits, but the Mountaineers, primarily from the foul line in the late going, outscore Iowa State 40-35 in the second half to win it 79-63. A balanced scoring night for WVU. Taz Sherman, who returned after suffering a concussion against the Baylor Bears and sitting out last Saturday's game against Texas Tech, led the Mountaineers with 16 points. In fact, he flirted with a double-double. Along with those 16 points, he also had 8 rebounds and 6 assists. 2 Mountaineers finishing up with 14 points. Jalen Bridges with a 14.5 rebound night. Malik Curry, 14 points, and 10 of those coming from the foul line. The other double-figure scorer for West Virginia, Sean McNeil, who hit 3 threes and finished with 13. For the game, West Virginia shot it at 50%, 22 of 44, and 50% from three-point range. They made 10 out of 20, and really good job at the foul line, where they made 25 of 29. That's 86%. Next up for WVU, Saturday afternoon in Stillwater against the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. That is today's Mountaineer Report, brought to us by Kroger, the official grocer of WVU Athletics. I'm Tony Caridi of the Mountaineer Sports Network from Learfield.
Introducing our new redesigned 7 News app. Our new app features a sleek, modern design, an easy-to-navigate home screen with quick access to local news content and a localized weather forecast. Subscribing to notifications is easier, and with one tap, you have access to recent push notifications. There are more ways to watch and find video. To get the new WTRF 7 News app, just update the latest version or download the WTRF 7 News app in your Apple or Google Play Store by searching WTRF.
Are you or your loved ones facing a serious legal battle? The law office of Paul Harris wants you to know you aren't alone. Do you need someone that's not afraid to go to trial and fight for your rights? Attorney Paul Harris and his team are willing to go where most firms are not. The courtroom. With a successful track record in civil litigation, criminal defense, including tax issues and healthcare fraud, Harris Law Office will fight for their clients by offering the most aggressive representation in and out of court. Call Paul Harris at Harris Law Office for a free consultation. 304-232-5300.
He has his say. You can have yours. Text us or call us and join the conversation. This is the Watchdog Morning Show with Howard Monroe.
We have been following fairly closely this HB 4011. I hate talk show hosts who always talk about bill numbers, but it's the anti-transparency bill, air quotes there, or anti-stereotype bill, I should say, air quotes there, or the transparency bill. I think it's a stealth critical race theory bill, but we've talked about it a lot on the show. We've been tracking some of the facts of the story. Senator Owens Brown was with us yesterday sharing his concerns. We talked with Dale Lee earlier in the week, the WVEA president, who was supposed to testify at an earlier hearing on this and got cut off before he could even testify. It's become quite controversial, but it does seem to be moving through very quickly. I wanted to take some time to talk about it with our friend Stephen Adams from the Ogden newspaper chain. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Howard. Coming to you live from outside the chambers of the West Virginia House of Delegates, where here at 9 o'clock there is going to be a public hearing in regards to this bill, House Bill 4011, the bill dealing with concepts derived from critical race theory, how they are presented in public schools, and curriculum transparency and all that stuff. And I got to tell you, I've already looked at the sign-up sheet for the public hearing, and it's very lopsided. Nobody signed up to speak for this bill, but a lot of people have signed up to speak afterward.
Well, that was going to be my question. What are you anticipating? So this will probably be a lot of critics expressing their concern. Is that what you're seeing on the sign-up sheet there?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So far, again, nobody has signed up to speak in favor of this bill, which is a controversial bill about a very controversial topic that certainly makes a lot of headlines and gets a lot of interest for the most part. But yeah, nobody here really come on to speak in favor of requiring schools to put up all of their curriculum, which technically they already do anyway through the Department of Education. But this would require more transparency in regards to teaching of specific concepts linked to critical race theory. Now, of course, they'll tell you that critical race theory itself is not taught in schools, and that's absolutely a fact. But you are starting to see some people kind of branch out and bring up, say, authors like Dr. Ibram X. Kendi or Robin DiAngelo, who teach concepts of what's sometimes called anti-racism and things like that. Teachers are bringing up these topics in schools, not necessarily to indoctrinate anybody, but especially if you're in high school, these are the type of topics you do want to discuss, just to develop critical thinking and get people thinking about some of these very complicated topics, such as race, such as discrimination, such as concepts such as systemic racism. So these are real things that people have to deal with, particularly people, minorities, and things of that nature. So you're seeing these concepts come up more and more, but there's a lot of pushback, too, from people that feel these concepts unfairly portray one race, such as, white people, as automatically the oppressors of other people, even if they've never actually done any oppressing.
The argument, though, that presenting the point of view of someone who has a different point of view is somehow indoctrinating students, I think is a little messed up. I mean,
I think
Stephen,
so too.
I'm sure you as I, some of the most interesting and intriguing classes I took as a high school student, and certainly in early college and so on, was when ideas were presented to me that made me think outside my box, and that's what teachers do. We've already had a case here in the local area. It was presented on the floor, I think, in the Senate this week, of a Wheeling Park High School teacher who teaches the Dr. Kendi, doesn't teach, but again, who presented Dr. Kendi's position and, got called out for, there they are, teaching critical race theory, when I think she was just trying to give students a different perspective for them to consider.
Sure. I try not to delve into full-on opinion on this, but as a reporter and someone that's been a reporter for a very long time, obviously my work is protected by the First Amendment, freedom of the speech and freedom of the press. And I kind of believe that even if you have issues with some of the concepts that come out of I hate to almost say critical race theory because, as I said, the critical race theory itself is a concept that's taught usually in master's classes, higher level law classes, but there are concepts derived from critical race theory that are out there and are discussed. But I just am a big believer that you combat speech you don't like with more speech. This seems to be very much trying to prohibit these types of discussions. And of course, they'll tell you that, they want the discussions about historical facts. They don't have a problem with, teaching about, America's role in slavery or the civil rights or Jim Crow or any of these complicated issues or even more recent issues such as obviously Ferguson or, some of the race and policing issues that have taken place over the last few years. But it just seems to me that when you limit what you can discuss in a classroom, that's just problematic. I think you need students to be able to have some critical thinking skills. And if they walk away disagreeing with what's talked about in class, that's fine too. But you're better off having the discussion than not having the discussion because they're going to find out about some of these concepts anyway.
Your comparison to freedom of speech to reporters is really interesting. I never thought about that. And maybe I don't even want to say it out loud for fear of giving people an idea. But it would be akin to saying to reporters and editors and so on, you have to post online everything you're going to talk about ahead of time, and that you're going to have to avoid certain subjects because they might be too controversial, when in point of fact, what we expect from the media, what we try to give you and I and others, Stephen, is all points of view. We try and tell you, today's hearing as an example, we'll try to tell you what people who oppose this bill are thinking and also what those who support it are thinking. But if there's a policy in place that puts us under a microscope, maybe there's going to be less a tendency to be quite as freewheeling in offering differing points of view. That comparison to reporters, I think, is a really interesting one. And Stephen, I think I'm right about this. In fact, I know I'm right about this. You wrote about it as well. There's been a bill introduced to sort of create a what's the word I'm looking for here? It's a tip line, but it's almost a tattle line, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is State Senator Mike Azinger, one of the more probably further to the right than even most Republicans in the Senate caucus, has proposed a bill. It's basically modeled after something that Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin actually implemented on his own, which is a tip line to report instances of these type of teachings, and then from there they can report it to those county school boards. And do what about it, I'm not sure. There doesn't seem to be any type of requirement as to what is supposed to be done if you find it. Now, I will tell you that my understanding is that bill probably is not going to go anywhere, but it is an example of several bills that have been introduced dealing with critical race theory, which really tends to be more of a controversial issue in blue states versus red states. I mean, that's what's interesting about this bill. You can find some anecdotal evidence of maybe a teacher talking about this here or there, but this isn't really part of anybody's curriculum, even when you're talking about issues of racism or talking about past mistakes that we've made as a country, which need to be acknowledged and be reminded of, in regards to slavery, in regards to Jim Crow, civil rights, and things of that nature. It just seems to me that these just get real problematic, and we'll see where it goes. It's supposed to go to House Judiciary next, as far as the bill that's being considered 4011, what the public hearing is about. And we'll see if it goes anywhere or maybe if it gets bottled up.
You know, in the article you wrote statewide, but appeared in the Intelligencer, I think 2 days ago or yesterday, I can't remember, you say that H. Bill 4011 would, among other things, prohibit schools and county education officials from compelling students and staff to adopt any belief or concept about one race, sex, ethnicity, religion, or national origin being inherently superior or inferior to another. Note I made in the margin when I read that was, no school can, for any student, force them to believe or adopt any concept. The idea that teachers can make students adopt some concept is, to me, just it's a foolish concept to begin with. The idea that by teaching something, it then they automatically assimilate that and take it into themselves. That just is a silly, and maybe I'm wrong, but to me, that's just a silly concept to begin with.
Look, I had a social studies teacher my junior year of high school that was very much into Oliver Stone and into the movie JFK, and we had to watch JFK in class and we had an open discussion about whether the assassination of JFK was a conspiracy or whether it was a lone gunman, that sort of thing. It was pretty apparent. Our teacher had a view that it was a conspiracy. But nonetheless, he didn't force any views on us. We had a very interesting, kind of fun discussion about it. And the class I'll always remember. I disagreed with my teacher's take on the whole thing, but the discussion was had. It taught critical thinking. We had to think about it. And nobody was penalized for what opinion they came up with based on what we talked about. That sort of stuff happens all the time in class, and most of that stuff doesn't even happen as part of a curriculum. Sometimes it just happens as open discussion. Sometimes it happens as a kid just asking a curious question about something. I mean, teachers have to deal with these type of things all the time. And that's the thing about 4011. It puts a lot of requirements on. but it doesn't actually put any type of enforcement mechanism. So what type of bill is this? Is it actually trying to change the discussions in classrooms, or is it more, and I think this is the way it is it more of a messaging bill for base Republican voters going into a primary?
Well, you're right. There's no enforcement mechanism, although when we talked, Brad McElhenney and I talked about this late last week, actually, and he pointed out probably the, quote, enforcement is public pressure if something comes to light that some folks think is inappropriate to teach. The next thing you know, they'll be complaining and maybe going to school boards. And my comment was, and then we'll have more of these meetings like we've had over masks and stuff, where people come, complain, pound their fists, and the public pressure is what causes the problem. I need to let you go, but real quick. So all the speakers signed up so far for this public hearing, which starts in about 5 minutes, are to argue against the bill. Nobody to argue in favor of it. Stephen, is that because the GOP majority understands they don't really need to argue in favor of it because they're going to pass it anyway?
Sure, and that tends to be the case with a lot of these public hearings, honestly. It's usually the requested, anybody can request one of their lawmakers, and they're usually granted, and it's usually an opportunity for people that are against a bill to kind of rally the troops, and so to speak, to come out and get a bunch of people to speak against it. Usually when a bill has at least some support, I think that's right. I don't know that they have much of a reason to load up a sheet of people talking for a bill necessarily. We saw that a few weeks ago with the public hearing on the 15-week abortion ban, which, by the way, is in House Judiciary's 3 p.m. agenda today, so we'll be watching that. But I think that's right.
Yeah, they know they've got the votes, and so, okay, you go ahead and, tell us why you think it's bad, and then we'll just go ahead and vote it forward. And that's what happens when you have the numbers. Stephen, a lot of other stuff to talk about. Maybe later this week we can pick up on some other things. We've got the unemployment thing. We've got the income tax thing. Started out slow session. It's kind of picked up pretty quick here in the last week or so, right?
It's picked up a little bit, yeah. We're approaching day 30 tomorrow. That's the halfway point of the session. So, yep, from here on out, things are going to start to pick up.
Well, I really wanted to stretch this long enough so that you would have to walk into the public hearing in the middle of it, because I wanted to hear Craig Blair do the Jim Justice thing. Stephen, you can't come in. You got to be quiet coming in here. But I guess I'll let you go anyways.
Thanks, Howard. Talk to you later.
All right, thanks a lot. Stephen Adams from the Ogden newspaper chain, one of our multiple reporters we check in with down in Charleston almost every day. Brad McElhenney from Metro News, Mark Curtis. I haven't talked to Mark for a while. Biff and I were talking about that earlier this week off the air. We need to get Mark up here and talk to us a bit. Stephen is on frequently as well. So we try the best I can to keep you informed of what's happening in the legislature. I think it's very important. I think legislative coverage is critical. Used to be there broadcasting multiple times during the session. In recent years have not done that. Hoppy used to be there every day almost. In the last couple of years, he hasn't done that. So the best we can do is try to keep you up to speed. We have the Capitol Report every day from Metro News. They pull all the stuff together. That's the top of the hour, the 8 o'clock hour. And then I try and have as many guests on this subject as I possibly can. All right. Legislative conversation will no doubt continue with the legislative watchdogs. They are coming up next here. Hoppy is in at 10:06 this morning with a lot of stuff going on, but it's all the same kind of stuff. He's just bringing us some different perspectives. He'll be talking more about the unemployment bill, which I just find disgusting because it is cutting back on unemployment benefits is predicated on the belief that we're all just lazy people. We're just lazy people. Why give them any unemployment benefits? They're just lazy. They'll wait till they all go away, which is just asinine in my opinion. But Hoppy will talk more about that with Senator Mike Romano from Harrison County today on Statewide Talkline. Also coming up today on Talkline, Tony Caridi on WVU's win over Iowa State yesterday. So all of that coming up on Talkline, but first it's the legislative watchdogs. As for me, Good Lord willing, creeks don't rise, bat phone doesn't ring, don't get impeached, don't retire, and most importantly, Teddy says, it's okay, you can go back to work tomorrow, Granddad. I shall return tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, and go around to the big gig. Are you back with me, Biff?
I am here for a Thursday.
We're going to keep on doing this until we get it right.
That could be a long time.
Oh, my Lord, yes.
Watchdog is FM 98.1, AM 1600 WKKX Wheeling, FM 97.7, AM 1370 WVLY Moundsville.
From ABC News.
All right, Biffy, I'll let you get to the dogs. I'll be down there in half an hour or so, I will probably see you at that point. Reasonably good show today. I thought we kept everybody close to time, didn't keep anybody over too much, so worked out about as well as it could. All right, go talk to the dogs, and I will see you in a little bit. All right, bye.
Russian-backed, Russian-armed separatists in the eastern part of this country. That's a demand that Vladimir Putin has long been making.
Britain's foreign minister travels to Moscow today. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be at NATO headquarters tomorrow. Head of the Republican National Committee is speaking out after the organization censured both Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, two GOP House members who serve on the special committee investigating the January 6th attacks.
RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel on the defensive over the resolution that declared January 6th legitimate political discourse. In an op-ed with Town Hall, writing, I have repeatedly condemned the violence that occurred at the Capitol on January 6th and do so again today. Adding, violence has no place